Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tech Steve, and today we're going to compare old versus new. So one of the big questions that a lot of people are wondering, should I buy a newer television or older television? Well, I want to do a comparison between the TCL QM6K, which is a 2025 model, against a older TCL QM850G. Now, at the time, the 850G was one of the most popular televisions of a couple of years ago, and I still think it performs very well. So if you think about it, when you go look for price points, you're probably going to see that they're pretty compatible just because of the age of the televisions. But the question is, which one is the best one for you? Should you go for the new model or get an older model? So in this video, I'm here to answer all those questions. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that I did put both TVs in movie mode. Neither TV is calibrated, and these are the factory settings from TCL to give it a fair comparison. Of course, I can go in there and make some adjustments, but I want to be fair when I show you these two TVs side by side. Some things that stands out to me immediately is that the QM6K is a lot more toned down as far as when it comes to the warm mode, and the QM8 seems to be a lot warmer overall, and I can definitely notice a lot more details in the shadows in the backgrounds of the different images. And so far, I definitely can see a difference in the color reproduction on the QM8, but the story's not over. And before I continue, just so you know, if you're a TCL fan, I have a playlist, so make sure you go check it out because every TCL video that I reviewed will be in that playlist, so you can go look at the history if you want to know more about these televisions, but this is just a picture comparison. With both TVs in sports mode, in my opinion, I think both TVs look great, but the thing that really stands out again is that color reproduction. So do you want something a little bit more flatter, or do you want something that has a lot more saturation like the QM8, which appears to have better reproduction of the greens if you look at the graphs on these different demos compared to the QM6K. The interesting thing, when I was watching movies on these two TVs side by side, there were some scenes that I looked at that I actually preferred the QM6K over the QM8 series, and mainly because the shadow details. Now, there's no doubt about it that the QM8 definitely has better colors, but those shadow details, it seems like something you would need to adjust. In my opinion, I think you'll be fine either way, but leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Testing these TVs out, starting off with dirty screen effect, I think both of them have about the same characteristics. One thing you'll notice is that the QM8 is a little bit more on the darker side, and it's because it has more local dimming zones, which you would see on my full video. But the great thing is I don't see any areas that stands out on either TV, so I think both of them are going to be fine for the average user. As far as blooming, I think both TVs do a great job. Now keep in mind that the QM6K has a HVA panel and the QM8 has a VA panel, so when it comes to blooming, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Now, a lot of people wonder about motion, and motion really comes down to the high bitrate content that you're watching. So if you're watching IPTV or something that's not going to have a higher resolution, I think you're going to have some problems with motion on any television. Doing it side by side, I thought the QM6K did a better job at motion in movie mode, but again, you can go in there and change the judder and things like that, but just at factory settings, I just think it's going to give you a smoother image. Now keep this in mind, if you use paid content that has a really high quality streaming service behind it, you probably won't experience too much problems with motion. But if you use any type of other format, you might. As far as upscaling, I think both TVs do a really good job at 720p and up. So if you want to get the best picture quality, make sure that your content supports this type of resolution. But keep in mind, ultimately, these TVs are designed to get a true 4K signal on them to give you the best picture quality. And this can come in forms of 4K Blu-ray players, streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, and those type of movie sources. Now we're going to talk about some of your guys' favorite, and that's gaming. Both TVs do have a gaming bar, and they call it Game Master. And they'll show you features like the frames of your game, auto low latency, variable refresh rate, and there's some menus for HDIG and more. And if you want to see the full gaming settings on both televisions, make sure you go check that out right after this video. In my opinion, I think gaming is going to be very similar on both TVs, and the main reason is because once you get 60 hertz or 120 hertz playing on them, I think you're going to be just fine. Now, if you are a heavy duty gamer, then maybe you want to have a PC and a high performance gaming monitor to match up with it. But for televisions, I think it's going to be very similar. The last few things we're going to talk about is the audio system. So if you look at the QM8, it has a single subwoofer on it, has a great audio system, and the QM6K has 2 subwoofers on it. If you really don't want to add a surround sound like the QM85H or any type of audio system, I want you to hear the TV speakers. And if you want to get the best experience, put headphones on or even play it through a home audio system so you can hear the true differences.
Tennessee, while the cold here in Sweden got the best of me. Tennessee, while the cold here in Sweden got the best of me.
So the differences I can hear is that the QM8 has better bass response, but I will tell you, just listen to it here live in the same settings, that the QM6K was just slightly clearer, but the audio is very similar in both of them. And I thought the dual subwoofers would make a huge improvement, but it's very slight over, the previous one subwoofer system. Now, the last few things we're going to talk about is viewing angles. I would say despite that the QM6K has an HVA panel, I found that the viewing angles look very similar to me. And the fact that both of these TVs use a VA type panel, I think you're going to get a little bit of coloration from off axis, unlike an IPS panel. The last thing I want to test is the glare on these televisions. And the interesting thing is that the QM8 had these little tiny squares that haloed around the light that I was using. And when I switched over to the QM6K, it seemed to create more like a halo effect. So I'm not sure what that means in terms of real life, but I would say that if you have a lot of windows in your room, you're going to get some glare from these televisions. And that is expected because at the end of the day, this is glass. So what does all this mean? The QM6K is a really good performer. This television is hanging in there with the older QM8 series, but keep in mind, this is 2025. There's still a QM7 series coming out soon. There's going to be a new QM8K coming out soon. So should you wait? Well, I would say yes if you want to pay premium prices when they first come out. But if you're looking for a great performing television, you might want to consider going with the QM8 from back in the day. Now, there's one thing that I really wanted to be honest with you. If you have multiple gaming consoles, the older QM8 shared one of the HDMI 2.1 ports with the eARC. So what does that mean? It means if you have 2 gaming consoles and a soundbar, you would have to give up one of your 120 hertz connections in order to have the gaming experience, but you lose the soundbar. On the newer QM6K, it now has 2 HDMIs and it has a separate eARC, so you can run your soundbar and 2 gaming consoles and get full performance out of them. The QM6K has this new black remote, and the QM8 had that longer, thin TCL remote, which I tend to like a little bit better, but that's just a remote control and it doesn't really change the experience on the television. When it comes to the overall experience, I still prefer the QM8 because it is a higher end series after all. And if you think differently, please leave a comment below. I'm Tech Steve. Thanks all for watching. Make sure you go check out one of these other videos right after this one, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.